Why can't narcissists be at home? Do you ever feel frustrated or rejected when the narcissistic person in your life seems unable to just spend time with you at home? Does it hurt when they constantly need to be out socializing, traveling, or engaging in new activities? Their reluctance to simply be present with you in the comfort of your shared space likely stems from some core aspects of narcissism that drive their behavior. In this in-depth video, we'll unpack the reasons why narcissists struggle deeply with being alone and tolerating solitude. We'll explore how their fragile self-esteem requires near-constant external validation from others in order to keep painful feelings at bay. And I'll share my own personal journey of overcoming my narcissistic tendencies by learning how to be comfortable spending time in self-reflection and activities at home alone. Understanding the root causes behind the narcissist's homebody avoidance and need for perpetual stimulation can help you stop taking their behaviors so personally. It provides clarity that their actions result from inward lack rather than anything you are or are not providing in the relationship. My hope is that through comprehending the narcissist's emptiness and fear of being with themselves, you can gain peace and prevent their storms from subsuming your life. The roots of narcissistic emptiness. At the core of narcissism is a gaping hole where a stable sense of self and self-esteem should be. These deep deficits originate largely from lack of secure attachment in childhood. Either the narcissist grew up feeling neglected and invisible, with their emotional needs for attunement going unmet by parents preoccupied with their own lives, or they were overly indulged and pampered by parents who treated them like royalty, instilling an inflated sense of superiority and grandiosity. In both scenarios, the child fails to develop the ability to be alone and self-validate. Without caregivers around to help regulate their emotions and provide a stable mirror to see themselves accurately, these kids grow up profoundly uncertain of who they are at their core. They lack a grounded center of identity outside of others. They never learn to dependably generate feelings of self-worth from within. Their shaky sense of self feels constantly under threat of collapse. Narcissists unconsciously compensate for this egocentric fragility through the development of a defensive false self. This outward-facing facade conceals the narcissist's inner vulnerabilities and compensates for deep-seated feelings of defectiveness. The false self may look arrogant on the outside, but below the surface lies crippling shame and loneliness. The narcissist projects pseudo-pride, coolness, seductiveness, intellectualism, or other desirable traits as part of their heavily constructed public image. But these are merely covers for fear, threat of being alone, because their inner landscape feels so desolate and frightening. Spending time truly alone with themselves is incredibly threatening for narcissists. Home represents a space where their manicured false image drops away, and they are forced to confront the reality of their painful inner workings. Within the walls of their domicile, there is no audience to impress, no one to seduce or envy them. Without constant external stimulation, the narcissist's ego begins cannibalizing itself. Alone in the confines of home, their thoughts often turn corrosive. Narcissists lack the ability to dependably self-soothe or validate themselves in order to temper their inner critic. If they sit with themselves for too long, feelings of worthlessness and self-loathing envelop them. Critics call this narcissistic injury, when the grandiose illusion fails and their deficits show through. The narcissist is willing to go to great lengths in order to avoid this experience of painful ego deflation. They escape the distress of their cracked facade by seeking out fresh narcissistic supplies: attention, admiration, status symbols, sex, and experiences that allow them to prop up their ego once more. Gatherings with friends, parties, clubs, concerts, travel, fine dining, hobbies, sports, recreational drugs, shopping, and social media. These provide temporary relief from devaluation for the narcissist. They desperately move from one glittery experience to the next, trying to outrun their inner demons. Another reason narcissists shun time at home is that domestic spaces have the potential to induce boredom. For them, being bored doesn't just mean feeling listless or unstimulated in the moment. It signals a terrifying encounter with the emptiness that lives inside of them. Rather than sit with the void of themselves, narcissists require constant entertainment and sensory pleasures to distract them. A calm homebody evening, reading, cooking a meal, watching a movie, fails to adequately distract them from their inner wasteland. It leaves space for rumination and introspection, which swiftly turns ugly. Because stable self-awareness and self-worth are missing, the narcissist relies heavily on external validation from others to feel alive and whole. Home is merely a shell they pass through on the way to more exciting and affirming activities and interactions. They are caught in an endless pursuit of trying to fill their inner void through outside stimulation. But it is a losing game. They can never get enough positive feedback or new experiences to feel complete. Behind closed doors, their insecurities re-emerge. My own journey. I know these behaviors and motivations all too well because for many years I exhibited them myself and struggled to simply be comfortable spending time alone at home. You see, I was raised primarily by a very self-involved mother who paid little attention to my emotional needs. My father was largely absent, providing no reliable mirror to reflect back my goodness. I internalized a sense of unworthiness at a young age, which I proceeded to try and outrun for decades. In adulthood, I became a workaholic, constantly chasing promotions and keeping my calendar full in order to prove my value and status. In my minimal downtime, I maintained a lively social schedule or traveled, barely pausing to come up for air. I hid my real self behind intellectualism, materialism, and arrogance. Inside, I felt like a scared, defective little boy. But I buried those feelings under layers of false confidence. Alone time was my nemesis. It invited painful self-reflection. Several events and losses in my 30s forced me to finally slow down and take personal inventory. When I did, the pain I'd been repressing for so long caught up to me. I experienced deep depression and anxiety facing the truth of my inner world. But with therapy and introspective practices like meditation and journaling, I gradually learned to identify the roots of my turbulent feelings and heal old wounds. I slowly reparented and reassured my inner child, building a solid structure of self-love where there had once been a shack. As I embraced my shadows, I began to feel safe spending time with myself, even occasionally looking forward to it. I discovered creative solo activities that allowed me to tune into my authentic self, like gardening, playing guitar, cooking, and writing. I took long walks in nature and worked through past traumas. I let go of toxic habits like drinking alone and scrolling social media endlessly to avoid my emotions. For the first time in my adult life, I began to feel grounded and at peace spending a weekend home alone. Solitude became restorative rather than something to dread. Narcissistic wounds run deep. If you are in a relationship with someone high in narcissistic traits, their extreme avoidance of being at home and alone with themselves is almost certainly not about you. It does not imply that you are uninteresting or unworthy of their time, despite how their actions may make you feel. Know that the narcissist's unrelenting need for activity and outside validation is ultimately a defensive maneuver born of deep insecurity and fear of emotional pain. Their deeper work must come from within. Don't let the narcissist's homebody aversion and lack of introspection cause you to doubt yourself or succumb to loneliness. Fill your own cup by nurturing your interests, friendships, and time spent outdoors and doing self-care practices. The narcissist's existential angst and stormy emotions are a reflection of their inner fragility, not a statement on your value. Have compassion for the fear underlying their restlessness, but also set healthy boundaries so their chaos doesn't derail your life. The narcissist's childhood wounds and resulting false self run far deeper than can be healed through the love of any one person. But with sustained counseling, introspection, and courage, even the most unstable ego can learn to find peace in solitude rather than running endlessly. Our culture's emphasis on ego gratification compels many into narcissism, but within each of us is an authentic self-awaiting discovery, content with simplicity and grace. Have you dealt with a narcissistic partner or family member who resisted being home and was constantly on the go? Were you able to learn to enjoy your own company despite their distaste for alone time? Share your experience in the comments to support others on their journey of self-discovery and healing. Together, we can develop inner security that transcends the ego's ceaseless desires. For example, one woman shared, "My ex was like this. I met him at church. We went to a mega church. There were thousands of people there, and so they had a lot of activities to be involved in. The whole time we dated, we were doing church activities and fellowships. It was a lot of fun. But when we got married, we didn't stay home together more. But we kept up our busy schedule, teaching classes, being in music ministries, Bible studies, etc. My ex was at the forefront of these, doing the teaching, playing the guitar, facilitating the fellowships. When we had kids, I stayed home, and he was at church every night of the week, and Saturdays. I would say, please stay home with me at least one night a week. He literally said, I am not going to promise you one night a week because something important might come up. I could not explain or complain to anyone because they saw him as a spiritual giant, because he was at church giving all them time. They saw me as a backsliding, complaining, unsubmissive wife, because I was not as involved as he was. Now I understand that his supply was all the adulations and attention that he got from church. He was always on stage playing the guitar, always in front of the small group doing the teaching, always entertaining everyone with witty sayings and verses. That's the person that I fell in love with. The mask he wore while performing at church. At home, he ignored me, bossed me around, and complained. No one believed me that he was a different person at home. This shows how even spiritual or church activities can provide narcissistic supply and stimulation that keeps the narcissist constantly busy and away from true alone time. Do you relate to her experience? Share your story to support others going through similar struggles. There is hope for rediscovering your worth beyond the narcissist's rejection.